Did you watch the 100 meters? Have you seen the final?
Of course I did. Gosh.
What a
That
fucking win!
Yeah, that was so. I'm not gonna say lucky because it takes so much work to get there, but fuck, that was on the line.
Man, was it 5
Yeah,
1,000th of a second?
yeah,
It
the
is,
smallest margin in Olympic Games history.
yeah,
It
yeah.
has never been so close.
And even, I don't know if you see, obviously, your background, for those that don't know, Paolo, is a high jumper. Did you see the women's final?
Oh, of course, yeah, as well. The women's final was just out of this world as well. And an outsider. I mean, no one was expecting her to go like that. Shakari definitely was where my bet was. And obviously, if you see the sprint on Netflix, you get to know her story. And yeah, it's just amazing. I was expecting her to do slightly better, but Alfred was just out of this level.
No, I was actually referring to the high jump because you're a high jumper. So I was
Oh,
saying, have you seen the women's high jump?
oh, the women's high jump, of course, I see as well. Yeah, so Australia really on a really high note there as well with Nicola and Eleanor. They're world class, really. There's nothing else to say. The
Yeah, and
girls
the
train so
Ukrainians
hard.
and the Ukrainians,
Yeah.
it's nuts. Now, obviously, one of the reasons why I've got you on Squeezing the Plums today is because it is the week of the Olympics, or it's a fortnight of the Olympics. And for someone that's had the ambitions and the dreams to be an Olympian for 20 plus years as a high jumper, there's no better time to have a discussion because for every athlete that makes it, there has to be at least 20 or 30 athletes that don't, even at the national level. So I'd love to know and get started and with our conversation around one key topic, which was around mentality. Because I asked you a question before we started here today. If you could speak to men of any age around a topic of conversation that you think you are equipped to talk about, what would it be? And you said mentality or the athlete's mindset. So give us a bit of an idea about what you have done in your past and why mentality or the athlete's mindset is something that resonates with you.
Mm. Gosh, yeah, such a strong topic to start with. And yeah, I first start by thanking you for having me on this podcast. It's obviously a pleasure to talk with you and with all the Australia and worldwide, the persons that listen to your podcast. I think this is a really nice initiative by you and the lovely work that you've been doing. So yeah,
Thank you, brother.
congratulations and thank you for having me. Um, yeah, on the topic of mentality, it's so important. And I don't know, in back in 2016, I've been doing athletics for a long time, and back in 2016 was when I started using a psychologist to enhance my performance in terms of mindset. And it really changed the way that I've lived the sport, and it almost turned me into a limitless person. And I feel lots of people could use that lesson to life. Sometimes we assume that things are impossible. And I believe that if you have the right mindset, you can do anything. If you have the desire and the faith that you are capable of doing something, you just keep working towards the goal and keep getting better. Um, in athletics and in my career, after breaking for the first time the Portuguese national record, I was a little bit stuck. I could not improve at all. I didn't know what was happening. The training was there, the physique was there, everything was there, apart from my mind. I didn't have any goal set to achieve, if that makes sense. So I feel like if you are feeling stuck in your life, and if there's something that feels impossible, or you feel like you're not progressing on your career, yeah, I would challenge any person that's listening to this podcast to really sit back with their thoughts and try to think what her goal or his goal is in his life.
So you were the
And
Portuguese national record holder, and you said you got a psychologist in 2016. So between 2010 and 2019, you were jumping either side of sort of 2 meters 20 based off your records, right? I had a little bit of a look, so I
Mhm.
know what you were jumping, but it was crazy to look at you lead into 2020 into the Tokyo Olympics, P being at 228, which is only 5 off the qualifying for the Olympics, right? So you're sniffing. You're right there and abouts.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing feat. So obviously the work you did with psychologists, and especially from 2016 onwards, you did a year of 224, you did a year of 221. So you'd been boosting and boosting and lifting yourself up, obviously to the Tokyo Olympics. So what ended up happening in the year of 2020 for you? And obviously you got your mindset to a point where you did start improving. So what was the thing that sort of happened once you achieved that goal?
Mm. Yeah, so for on the year of 2020, it was actually a little bit of a heartbreak in terms of my career because yeah, I started by talking about the mindset and how important it is, and I broke the limits of my head, but then I have some limits on my body, like everyone does. We are all human, and athletics is such a high demanding sport that you the only way that you improve is if you keep testing your limits physically, and my body couldn't handle the amount of pressure and the amount of force that I was putting on the floor to jump. And yeah, unfortunately I ruptured my Achilles, which is just the worst injury that you can do for a guy that jumps. Achilles tendon or patella tendinitis. It's both of them, either your knee or your Achilles. If you mess those ones up, you're pretty much gone off the sport. And it was really really hard. As you said, I was in the road to Tokyo 2020. I was getting it centimeter by centimeter, improving and having that mindset, and my dreams got shattered pretty much.
For
Um,
for
but
people that don't
really,
know, like, and that may have watched the Olympic final of the women's only, I think it was um, on Monday, or so like Monday morning. The Australian and the where was she from? Ukrainian. They both
mm,
jumped 2 meters clear, but to jump 2 meters and 2 centimeters, the difference between 2 and 202 can be such a massive difference. And so,
mm.
when you're talking about centimeters, like, you are making massive changes in your leaps and efforts to attend to Tokyo. So I guess, what time of the year did you jump that 228, and were you already looking to be a qualifier for Tokyo before the rupture?
Yeah, so that was in really early stages of the season. In Europe, we have the indoor season and the outdoor season. In Australia, here we only have outdoor tracks, um, and the advantage that Europeans have is that we can do pretty much two seasons and qualify or have results ahead of time. So in February 2020 was when I jumped 228, and this was in Europe, indoor. I would have all the outdoor season of Portugal, which is from um, let's say June, July, until end of July, to try to do the standard. So
Right. So you still
yeah,
had months in the bank.
yeah, I would have at least 3 months competing to still do the qualifier. If I didn't had ruptured my Achilles, probably I would qualify,
How do
keeping
you
on the
sit
semi track.
how do you sit with that? Like, obviously everyone has a window of opportunity. Every athlete that competes has their own unique story. There was I think it was a 800 meter athlete from Australia that had a bar fall on her during a weightlifting competition and ruptured
Mm,
her carotid artery, and she just come back and run again. Everyone's got a story. So, I mean, how did your story affect you? Like, when that happened to you? I mean, you've been training for the best part of, I don't know, 10 to 15 years professionally. For that to
Mm,
happen 3 months out, like, where does the
mm.
mentality come into play there?
Oh gosh, it's the mentality gets into getting out of the hole, really. I was in a really dark place for 4 years trying to get sense of my life back then and trying to get in good terms with athletics. Obviously, it has been my identity for the longest of times, and I had to figure out a way to implement my skills in athletics to normal life. People don't realize we athletes, we forfeit and sacrifice so much. We don't go out for parties, we don't drink, even the social gatherings with family, we don't have that. That's the sacrifice. You are pretty much 24/7 in love with the sport and giving your life to the sport. And so then for rupture your Achilles and not achieving your dream, it's just heartbreaking. So therefore it was really tough mentally. The solution that I found for that was um, trying to apply what I knew from a strong mindset in athletics to life. And that's how I entered into the modeling world, trying to put more effort into that. The current job that I have as a developer, being the best version of myself in that, and enjoying life and trying to use the discipline that I've learned from athletics to life. And yeah, some people say, oh, yeah, unlucky you didn't make to the Olympics, but maybe, because they're unlucky are the ones that have cancer, unlucky are the ones that don't have a solution for their problems. And realistically, an injury, I, there's there was ways to solve this problem of an injury. I was still able to jump to 18 and still have joy jumping, and I'm still alive. So sometimes people take life for granted, and definitely the lesson that I've learned from doing my injury is that I will enjoy every single part of my life from then on and do things at its fullest.
I remember a time, I was training in like the Vic Academy. There was like an academy for the senior squad in cricket for Victoria, and I got asked based off my pre-season to go and do a trial match for Victoria. And there was only a couple of boys that got asked, and I remember I was nursing an injury really bad, and I
Mm,
had I had a lackluster performance, like a performance that I was like, fuck. Only if I was like feeling fully fit, maybe I got that chance. And it's very hard to be able to switch your mindset and mentality when all you've been thinking about, dreaming about, working towards is the opportunity to step onto the big stage. Even to just step onto the big stage would just be like a bit of a dream come true. And it's hard to sit with sometimes, but I like the idea that, you can transfer that skill of mentality across anything that you do. Now, one of the things that I struggled with personally when I was in that situation was seeing other people that I knew, who I knew I
mm,
was more than capable of competing with, being better than, reach the levels and the heights that I wish that I could have reached.
mm.
So, did you know anyone else that went to the Olympics, and did you ever experience something similar to myself?
Oh, absolutely. Even today, I watch the Olympics, I see the Portuguese team, and I go, oh, this person, back in the day when I used to jump, they didn't perform that well. They were way above my skill level, and now they're living the Olympic dream. And even some athletes that have my age and train from the same facility as I come from. But yeah, there's actually two good stories there that I can mention. So these two persons that I'm going to mention, one of them was one of my best mates back in Portugal from athletics, we pretty much were rivals in the high jump. And then he went to the triple jump area and got really good in the triple jump. And he's now at the Olympics. He's going to compete at these Olympic Games.
What's his name?
It's Tiago Pereira. There's two Portuguese competing in triple jump. So it's the one that has Pereira as a surname, and he has the same age as I do. We started on the same school, we trained on the same places, and he used to be a high jumper, and then after making the decision, oh, hang on, like I actually got a really good shot at doing triple jump, he merged into that avenue and got the Olympics. And I went to the high jump route and didn't got the Olympics, got injured, right? So same upbringing, different outcome. And then there's another person, which is Magda Pen. She is a really good athlete, long distance athlete. And unfortunately, she just got diagnosed with breast cancer. So she missed her chances for the Olympics because of illness, and it's pretty sad and makes life in perspective. She is a two-time Olympian, so this would be her third Olympic Games. And when you put life like that, you can have the same opportunities as your mates, but sometimes you have a different destiny, and you can choose to live well with the conditions that are presented to yourself, and move forward and be happy with the success of others. I feel like society sometimes think about themselves only and see themselves as being poor. But if you are healthy and if you can be happy with your mates, with your family, and spend some quality time with them, that's really all you need.
Absolutely. And that there leads to a very peaceful way of being and feeling. Like, if you are riddled with jealousy and envy and hate and wanting, someone not to succeed just because they were at the same level as you were, then all you're doing is you're feeding your mind and your body poison. And you don't realize it at the time, but it will come out at some point. And I remember being, in my early 20s, very jealous and very envy person. If I saw someone that I felt that I deserved the opportunity over, do what I wanted to do, and that I had to switch that mindset. And I actually ended up finding that it was after I switched that mindset, I got into the state academy, which was ironic, right? Because I was just at peace
Mm.
with, you can only control your outcome, do the best that you can, and work like a dog to do it. But whatever other people do, celebrate it, because also they have had discipline, sacrifice, energy put aside for their dreams and their goals. And so if you don't know how to respect that, then at the end of the day, you're just going to harm yourself. You ruptured your Achilles. Now, as a podiatrist, I know that that's at least a 9 to 12 month injury. In high jump, God knows how long till you get back to jumping. Did you ever get back to jumping? Because I did see that you've been posting some scores, even though that you felt that your Olympic dream was over. So why did you keep jumping after that injury if you weren't going to make the Olympics? Or did you still have that in the back of your mind as something that could be achieved?
Yeah, athletics has been my life. I had to give it a shot. I had to prove to myself that I would be able to jump again, and I did. I did jump to 18 still, um, and you don't realize back then, but it was so important to have keep going and heal my Achilles and still be able to jump, because my I didn't do sports and athletics only for myself. I did it as well to inspire the young generation. That was a big motivation for me. I wanted to go to the Olympics to prove to back then to the Portuguese people that Portuguese could achieve the Olympic Games in high jump. And after rupturing my Achilles, I still had that objective in me. I still think today that if I pushed myself with the limitations, that I could have a really good chance on achieving the Olympic Games. But I'm 30 years old now. I've got a legal daughter and I've got a partner that I love the most, and I want to give her the best life possible. I can't be selfish in that way of achieving my dream and then maybe sacrifice the setup for our life. So for me, that's my next Olympics. My next Olympics is being the best dad. My next Olympics is being the best partner, being the best father, and being the best version of myself. Um, so yeah, I had to do that transition and make a choice. And it was a hard choice, but I believe it was the right choice. Right now, I'm living a really good and happy life.
I love how you said this is your next Olympics. Like,
Mm.
and in in life we ruminate on a lot of negative things that happened in the past, but we forget that we have an opportunity to create a really awesome future just with that mindset that you've just said. Without even saying anything more than what you've just said, you've just exemplified what a true athlete's mindset is. It's a growth mindset, it's one of resilience, and it's one of opportunity. And so, to have come back, to have proven yourself, to even jump 218, which would have been one of your top high jump scores between 2010 to 2019, still, besides your breakout year in 2020, that is still an amazing effort. Um, where did this idea of nationalism come from? That sounds very interesting because there's an element that I understand about that being a man of Indian heritage, and I understand what it means when you have certain stereotypes put upon you in terms of what your capabilities are, what you should look like, act like, do. Why was that such a big important part for you to show the Portuguese generation that high jump was achievable?
Um, yeah, I guess that was a little bit of a personal avenue, and yeah, I'm going into the vulnerable mode now. Um, for the longest of times, my dad wasn't around. I was raised by a single mother, and gosh, right now I realize a lot of those sad feelings. And although my mom was an excellent, she's a superhuman. She was able to raise me and my sister, and we are what we are now thanks to her and all my family as well. um but I needed to prove to myself that I was worthy of doing something great, and that I was worthy of being a son, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So it's a little bit of feeling abandoned. I felt abandoned back then. So therefore, I needed to do something great for the world to justify that I belong in the world, really. And gosh, right now, I do whatever feels right for me, whatever is good for the world, for myself only, and not to justify that I'm worthy to be in this world. I've already learned the lesson, and I've already realized that everyone is worthy to live in this world. Everyone has their own value, and that's a fact. But yeah, back then it was for the wrong reasons that I wanted to move the athletics.
Mm.
And yeah, today is a little bit different, and today I'm very different.
It's interesting. Like everyone has a motivation to start, right? It could be anger, it could be love, it could be humiliation from one thing to redirect that energy into something else. And the most important thing is you know how to redirect the energy into something that's useful. Um, Obviously, for yourself, redirecting energy of abandonment and feeling like you needed something to prove, you redirected that energy into your athletics, which is a very healthy place to redirect your energy. Was there a time, however, where you felt you directed so much energy into the sport that you sort of lost yourself or lost your ability to connect and sort of, what were the repercussions of something like that?
Hmm. Yeah, I guess the repercussions of that sometimes were bad decisions, really. And gosh, you don't really have a chance to know if they were really bad decisions or not, because sometimes being selfish in athletics might be a good decision for the outcome of the performance, but not so great decision socially, for your friends or for your family. And I felt like some of the decisions that I took back in the past in regards to my family were not great. Um, I think that's probably one of the main repercussions of it. If I could do something different then, although I'm grateful for my course until here, I would probably spend a little bit more time with my family in certain situations.
Mm. So, who supported your dream growing up? Obviously, your mum was there, but why high jump, and who sort of got you into that and kept you moving forward?
Hmm. Yeah, I jump. I just got addicted to it. Really. Moving forward, it was my group of mates back then. So Tiago, Marta, and all my group back in Portugal. They were my biggest supporters in that sense, and my biggest motivators. Um, my family was always around and very encouraging to keep training and pursuing my dreams. Um, and a self belief, I guess. I wanted to be really great at jumping. I really wanted to be great at doing something. And as you get better, you start to fall in love with the process, to fall in love with the evolution, and you can't stop. I guess that's a good addiction in some sense, but I was addicted to high jump, and it all started at school sports. For the youngest of ages, I like to do basketball, volleyball, everything that involved leap. So one day I went to the school where they were doing a clinic on high jump, and I said, okay, this is an event made for me. I love jumping, so they're testing who can jump the highest. That's what I love to do, and ever since I've explored that avenue and tried to perfect it.
Mm.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
then, I guess my thing then is obviously people need support in order to get to the top level in anything. Um, Without a father
Mm.
figure in mind, and with your mum
Mm.
there, was there any other support, especially male support? Like,
Yeah.
were you able to substitute that
Yeah.
lack of father figure with anyone else?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So, gosh, my first coach, I still until today I call him my dad. He was the male figure for me. We before I became a pro, I used to train in this school, and there was a PE teacher. His name is Paulo Barrigana. He was just the best coach and father. Um, we had a family on that school. On that school, there was made so many athletes from Portugal that are now Olympic level and even national level, and a big part of it is just the culture that man provides around. He really educates athletes before training them, and I felt like lots of my education came from that environment. Really, it's so important. The environment that you are at, it really defines you in a way that sometimes people don't realize, how much the environment is important. Yeah,
Mm.
and definitely Paul Barrigana and the environment that he created, um, was not only a support system for me, but the best place to be in terms of my education and inspiration.
One thing
Yeah.
that I didn't actually ask you when you spoke about seeing a psychologist in 2016 was Did you see the psychologist because you had a series of bad jumps and you were stuck? Or did you see the psychologist because you couldn't break a certain level? And then when you did see the psychologist, what were the things, like how many sessions did you do? What did you discuss? What did you learn? Like, can you break that down? Because athletic psychology is a little bit different to like mental health psychology potentially. I mean, maybe it's not, but
Hmm. Yeah, so for me, I used it with a little bit of both. So it started by uh, being um, the main focus was to enhance my performance. So I was stuck. I needed to figure out how can I get better, because physically I'm stronger, I'm faster, I'm hitting well, the nutrition is on point. Why am I not jumping higher? I couldn't get my head around it. So someone recommended me to see a psychologist to see if there was any mental block, and the reality is that it was a mental block. So we had sessions, I'll say fortnightly, but sometimes when my head was in sync with the objectives, we would go for monthly. And at the beginning, it was really about breaking down those limitations that I had in my head. I was satisfied to be the Portuguese record holder back then in 2016. That was my goal, and I also had a sponsorship for Adidas, which was also a goal. So after meeting those two goals, I thought that I was the king of the jungle. No one could beat me anymore. So yeah, who cares about jumping higher? And I was training still, but there was no objective, there was no goal, and Miguel, my psychologist, he helped me and break those limits in my head, and made me realize that if you are satisfied, you're not gonna go further. You know, you have to seek unsatisfaction. You have to always be almost unsatisfied with the place that you are. Obviously, in a healthy way, but there's always a step forward to go, and that's what you have to aim. Um, and yeah, those techniques that Miguel taught me back then were key. And there were simple things, you know, just regular conversation, in terms of the technique of high jump, knowing, okay, is your jump perfect in your opinion? And I would say no, like it's not. Like I have to work my knee drive, I have to work my position before the bar, I have to work the bend over the bar. And it's like, okay, so let's break it down. And in training sessions on this week, you will only focus on one point, which is the knee drive. So we would go the next fortnight, and we would discuss: did you achieve that knee drive? Yes. Like, did that improve your jump? Yes. Okay. So that then keep going. What's the next step that you can um, perfect your jump? And we would keep going step by step, heading up and stacking up improvements until there was no more improvements to stack up. And that's what I learned with life. That mindset, it really translates into everything. In a skill, in software engineer, which I do now, there's always a new language to learn. Within a language, there's always another feature. There's always a better way of doing things, and that's what I'm pursuing. So for everyone that's listening, yeah, there's always a place for growth, and you should be looking always to growth. And if you're on a bad position right now, it's great because you can always get better. And that, I believe that that's the mindset that people should often have. Sometimes it's hard, but yeah.
so then at what point do you feel like you should be happy with where you're at? Like, should you be happy with where you're at as well as knowing that there's room for growth? Because that's really hard. Like, I understand that you need to have a level of perfectionism if you want to be the best of the best. Like, people are very soft in the coaching realm these days. It's like, well done, participation reward, you did so good. It's like, no, if you want to be the best of the best, you need to continually improve, because there is someone out there that is working harder, pushing harder, and at the end of the day, they're going to reap the rewards. So, a bit of old school is important. But at what stage do you also smell the roses, like when you were the Portuguese champion, and realize that you have achieved a goal that you've been set out to achieve? Like, how do you balance the two of those things?
Hmm. That's a great question. So the way that I found to balance those two is what they so call enjoying the journey or carpe diem. It's really taking pleasure on the process. I enjoy training so much. I enjoy working hard. I enjoy seeing the next day I've improved. Like Kobe Bryant has this classic saying, like every time I woke up in the day and I ask myself, am I better than yesterday? Did I increment 1% of my performance? And just knowing that you are better, at least for me, gives me joy. And that has been the way that I've found to take joy of the process. Every jump that I do, that I achieve a knee drive or that I clear a good height, even the 218 that I've done after injury, I've enjoyed that like so much. I wasn't expecting to jump that high after injury, and it's not any Olympic qualifier, but it's still a great achievement. And I guess setting micro goals and nailing them, that will give you a sense of evolution. And people just love evolution, and people love to get better, the feeling of getting better. I still don't know anyone that is better than the previous day and get sad about it. So
Yeah.
that's where I take the joy, and that I think that's helped me. Yeah.
So then, how do you? So, I guess transitioning from striving to reach the pinnacle of high jumping and to reach the Olympics and to fall, just a touch short from potentially getting to the Olympics, right? To now leading a more normal life. So we see a lot of athletes. They go from whether it's playing Australian rules football or the pinnacle of like sports or playing in a grand final and feeling the rush and the energy and the vibe of like competition, which can only be explained or understood if you have done it. If you have felt the rush and the energy behind, fuck, what a feeling that is. Like, for you, if you've got a crowd that are clapping, that are waiting for you to be able to take your first step, running into the high jump before you Frosby flop fucking backwards over the bloody thing, and you kicking your feet over, and it's all happening and you're pumped. How do you get from that high to knowing that you'll never feel that high again? Because, I mean, maybe you will. Maybe it came as being a parent, but that feeling is something that when you go into normal life, it almost doesn't reappear back into your life. Unless, of course, you have another Olympics that you're thinking about. That's obviously a figure of speech there. But how did you transition? How did you transition? And do you miss it? And are there other things in life that you're looking forward to give you the same feeling back?
Bird question again. Gosh. So yeah, how do you transition? So I went to Portugal specifically to finish my career back in July, and that was a perfect way to start the transition, because every transition happens with a hand, and fortunately I could choose where I was gonna end. And sometimes people don't have that. People sometimes are forced to finish. The Achilles injury wasn't the way that I wanted to finish, and yeah, I think I'm fortunate enough to be able to finish on the way that I wanted. um and yeah, so after that emotional and easy way to end your career, the transition and the joy gets from other places, as you mentioned. It gets into the things that you wanted to try and that you couldn't, exploring the careers that you wanted. And obviously, I don't know, I might be like a lot of people that just enjoy the validation from other people and the cheering up. The thing that I used to love the most about high jump of the clapping was seeing people enjoying themselves seeing me jumping and knowing that I'm the motive for them to be cheering up. I've got a little bit of that, I will say a little bit cocky superstar energy. I just like to be the king of the show and be doing like clown things and clapping. So if I join for some reason one of the Australian clubs and go and for a local competition, hell, you're gonna see me clapping and you're gonna have a good time. So and I will clear 2 meters, which is nothing crazy, and I'll still have that same feeling. So you can reproduce the same feelings in anywhere that you want because it comes from you. It's up to your control to leave that feeling. So this is an high jump. Obviously I could reproduce it if I want to, and maybe in future like I will. I don't know how my life is gonna pan out and if I have time to do so. But in terms of professional careers, I'm now currently a model, and uh, modeling is a very competitive world, and it's obviously another Olympics. So um, metaphorical, I have like several Olympics in my life. I've got the Olympics of the dads, I've got the Olympics of the partners, the Olympics of the models, and for me everything is a competition, and you can get joy from everything that you do in the life. So
Mm.
that's mainly the transition, is just putting my best effort into everything else that I do.
It sounds interesting with the modeling, but I can kind of resonate. So when I used to do athletics, and I was not a gun athlete, I was a low 11-second runner. So there's nothing, super special about that. But starting on the blocks used to give me an electrifying feeling, yeah, regardless of
Mm.
whatever the result was going to be. Doing a catwalk and walking in front of heaps of people, I did that at Melbourne Fashion Week. I think I was like 21, 22. That was fucking electric. That was pretty phenomenal. And to be, there's only a few guys that got to go. That was pretty cool too. So I guess in any industry and anything you do, there is a pinnacle of that industry. There is an Olympics within that own category. And for anyone that's listening, I guess it's important to realize that you can still strive and achieve greatness within whatever you're doing. Um, and it's always easier to look at someone else's success and supersede your own. But I guess if you focus on yourself, hey, there's plenty around the corner. And I like how you've sort of said the Olympics of being a father, Olympics of being a partner. The 5 years as well, was it? Congratulations.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so Olympics, or whether it's of modeling or podiatry or podcasting, um, you can achieve that with the right mindset. I guess to finish, one of the hardest things to talk about is not getting rewarded for your efforts. 20 years of sacrifice and energy that goes in, and obviously a suitable reward for a lot of people is financial reward. In the Olympics, we know that a lot of athletes do not get paid or remunerated adequately for the years of sacrifice and effort. Once it's all said and done, you may have been a silver medalist. No one remembers your name. So, how do you go about sacrificing your energy now moving forward, knowing that you may not get rewarded?
Oh, yeah, I beg to differ. There's reward. There's always reward in my career. The biggest reward is who I've become. Is the lessons. The no one, all the business owners look for athletes like because they can't train discipline. I'm lucky that forever I've been training discipline, and that's a skill that I can carry for life. There's always reward in everything that you do, as long as you're learning and improving. So if you focus on what you're doing and you do it great, you might not get titles, you might not get recognition, and people might don't give a fuck. But do it for yourself. Do it for yourself. Do it to improve yourself, and no one will steal that reward, which is your improvement. That's for me. That's one of the key aspects of life. It's not looking outside, looking inside, and just improve. Become a superhuman. You'll always feel good about yourself and always get the reward.
Paulo, you have really been a pleasure to talk to, man. Like, to be able to get your perspective and insight, especially in the second week of the Olympics. There are people out there that will be listening that maybe didn't make their desired sport, didn't get the job they wanted, missed out on the date that they wanted to, meet up with someone. But the overarching message and mindset that you've shown is that you're always improving. And if you take away the key lessons, learnings, then they're the rewards that you get to take into life. So, mate, I'm absolutely blown away with this podcast. I loved having you on. Thank you for being on. And I hope we can have a chat again. Maybe face to face this time than over the computer.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on.
My absolute pleasure. Unfortunately, it was over the computer this time, but hopefully next time it will be face to face. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity and having me on this podcast. And anytime, man, anytime.